Hello, my name's Rick Baldock. I'm the owner of Stock Owners Shearing. We manufacture Lister shearing equipment, Muffler Virtue shearing equipment. Right now we're going through the tools that we will need to do repairs on shearing plant. You need a good punch to be able to knock the main spindle out and to hold the spindle in place when you undo the top nut. Two little dollies for knocking the bearings into place, especially on bearings. You only want to knock on the outside so you don't put pressure on the balls. The same with the small ones. And we've got these two little tools for knocking the collars out of the bearing. And on this little gadget, for the older shearing plants who have pins in their main spindles to knock them out, we have this tool that locates in there so we can hold it and knock the spindle pin out properly. So that's the tools you'll need. When repairing shearing plants, it's vital to use the right tools. If you're using the wrong tools, you will damage the new parts you put in, so you're back to square one. So it is ultimately vital to use the right tool for the right job. Today we're going to go through setting up of a down tube of a Lister shear leader. First of all, I've got the elbow and the short core. It is with a spline or worm, depending on, they've got two names. It is factory set, this safety clutch, so it is set, so leave it as it is. Next we're going to do is set the short tube up for a right-hander. Have the short core sticking out of the short tube by about 3 mils and lock it into place. This short tube, if you're the left-hander, all you need to do is undo that nut, pull that cotter pin out, turn it around the other way, have the smooth side on this side. The reason why we have that set up for a right-hander is that's the side that will bang him on the knee if he gets out of position and the down tube swings around. So that's set up. Next I'll show you the tube spring, which keeps the down tube in place. Always set the spring so where the spring finishes is set at the back. It will be set the same at the top and the bottom. That is so that if there's any burr or anything like that, it won't rub and cut the long core. To set the long core up, we'll just hold that in place onto a thread and thread it on. Just push that all the way up there and do that, just nip it up so that you can set the elbow up. Another male and female thread, so just thread it on. Be careful not to cross thread it. Just do it up tight. Doesn't have to be really tight, but as soon as a shearer puts it in gear, it'll do up tighter anyway. So lock the short ferrule on, doing them up tight. Now this part is the most important of setting up the down tube. Set the spring to the bottom of the cross section. Just do the nut up firmly. Then undo the wing nut and allow the down tube to drop to the bottom, and then raise it up 19 mils and lock it in. This should allow, if you look through that cutout section, you should see black core and not the silver part of the top ferrule. The reason why we set it there, if you set it up too high and the spring is covering the core ferrule, this will happen. It'll cause vibration and more wear on your gear. This is vital because 90% of our warranties come back is because the spring's set too high. So please set it up right so it sits more or less like that. Now we're going to oil up a down tube, which should be done at the start of each run. So these are the points to oil. One right at the top, just under the cone, one in the top sleeve, one at the top of the long tube, one in the middle of the long tube, one at the top of the elbow, then do the cogs, then the bottom of the elbow, and then on the slot for the short core. And before the start of each shearing, this grease nipple and that grease nipple should be greased at the start of shearing. If I start this up, keep rolling. Yeah, today we're going to change the cone, bearing and spindle on a Lister shear leader main spindle. First of all, what you need to do is take this off the shear implant, work it on the bench. We're going to knock off the top dome dust cover first. Now, the next thing you need to do is put a nail or something in this main spindle to stop it from turning. So, like that. Undo the lock nut. Now we're going to knock this main spindle out. That's the main spindle. Undo these 3 screws that hold the friction spindle housing on. Take the cone out. Press out the top bearing. There's a little wave washer there as well. And now we'll knock the bottom bearing out. So the reasons why you'll change the cone and the bearings and stuff is if it's worn out excessively like this one. This one had a top bearing seize and wore that out. It's wore this out. It's wore the keyway where the cone runs. This cone, there's also the keyway inside there is quite worn. There's only a third of the size left there, so that's the reason why you change those spare parts. You got your new bearing, new cone, top bearing, cone, main spindle, and your distance collar. So press the top bearing into place. Just tap that back into place. Press in the bottom bearing. Sit the cone in there so it will fit in between, and then press the bearing in more. Locate the spindle with the keyway so it will go straight through the keyway on the cone. I always have a direct drive core ferrule to knock the spindle through so you don't damage the thread. That's knocked in all the way. Put the distance collar on. do the lock nut up. It is imperative not to over tighten the nut, otherwise you will cause a bow in the spindle. So it's just doing it up firmly, nip it tight, knock the dust cover back on, and the job's done. This is a Moffat Virtue shearing plant. I'm just going to go through a couple of basic adjustments that you see out in the field that they're not quite set right and it causes excessive wear. So first of all is this cone carrier assembly. Quite often is going like that when you see a shearer in action. So what we need to do is adjust these two screws in to allow it to be level and take the movement out. So the first of all you need to do is undo these lock nuts and then screw in each screw on each side. So we'll do the same amount on both sides. So our object is to keep this level with the friction wheel. So do it up so it's firm. We've taken the play out. We'll just check to see, make sure it'll go in and out of gear, which it will. If I was to do this up too tight on both sides, when you pull the pull cord to engage it, the friction wheel, the cone doesn't touch the friction wheel, so we need to readjust it out a fraction on both sides. Check again, make sure the cone goes in and out of gear, which it does now, and there's a fraction movement, so we'll just nip it up a little bit, take all that movement out, and now to lock it in place. Just recheck, make sure it goes in and out of gear, and now that's totally adjusted. Just another adjustment that you may need to do as a cone wears is the distance between the friction wheel and the cone should be between 2 and 3 mils. Now to readjust that, you need to undo this grub screw and shift the friction wheel in or out. Do not use a bearing puller on it. If it worst comes to worst, you need to take the motor off and get someone to hold the friction wheel and knock the motor. Right, now we're going to do adjustments on the Moffat Virtue down tube. First of all, this adjustment up here, as you can see, is far too excessive. It will be causing the cogs down the bottom not to mesh. So the distance there we want to get to is the thickness of a business card. So to do that, we need to unlock that lock nut, screw the upper bearing all the way up to the shoulder spring, and then back 3/4 of a turn, and therefore gives us that business card distance. Now make sure you relock this, otherwise it'll just lock up if you don't relock that. So that's all okay now. So that's the adjustment we need for that one. Now, the other adjustment on the Moffat down tube is the elbow. We'll just take that leather guard out of the way. Here you can see the amount of movement in this elbow which will be causing the cogs not to mesh. So we'll need to take that out. So we'll undo these 2 lock nuts. And adjust these pivot screws in. As you can see now, we've taken all that play out of that elbow, but if you do over tighten the 2 pivot screws, it won't allow the short tube to rotate. So you just got to find that happy medium where it's the elbow bends freely, but have taken all the play out. So, and make sure you relock the lock nuts. That's the adjustments on the Muffler virtue down tube.